I wanted to make a video about zone focusing. Zone focusing is something I do for much of my photography, and it's a way that you can preset the focus on your lens before you even take the picture. You don't need to lift the camera to your eye to do it. It's something you can do very quickly and effectively when you're taking photos. My opinion on photography is after you learn the basics of how to expose an image, and then with film photography, how to develop your film and then print an image. After you learn those basics, the next step on photography is anticipating moments and people skills. So this is really helpful with anticipating moments. So here I have a couple cameras. In the background I have two of my Nikon F2s, and then here I have a Leica M4 and then a Leica M6. In the background I have a Leica 3F. So with zone focusing, what you need to do is you look at the front of your lens. So here you can see I have my aperture ring. This is a Zeiss 35mm f2 lens, and then I have my focus ring. At the bottom here I have my distance scale. So right now, as you can see up on the top, my lens is set to f4, and then we have these markings down on the bottom of the lens that correspond with f4. So right now, my distance chart shows that I'm focused my camera to infinity, here with my little infinity symbol. On the top in blue we have feet, on the bottom we have meters. So if I rotate my camera here, you can see we have on the left side we have 15 feet, and on the right side the 4 lines up with infinity. So right now, shooting at f4, everything from 15 feet to infinity is going to be in focus. Now I really like these distance charts because I shoot a lot between 5 and 10 feet. We're just going to use the 3 in meters to signify 10 feet because it's 3.3 meters, or yeah, so anyways, it's the same thing. So here, using f4, I can preset my focus. And what I do with this is I'm watching a scene, I'm watching the scene develop, and I'm looking for moments. So with moments, what I mean is peak action, if it's an action scene, or human contact. So someone putting their hand around someone shaking hands, a high five. I know those are like cliche and pretty cheesy, but just human contact, or someone jumping off something, just like little expressions. So what I can do is I can preset my focus while I'm watching a scene without lifting my camera to my eye. What I have found is that once you lift your camera to your eye, people see that movement, because that's how humans have evolved, is to see movement, and they start paying attention, and just instinctively they'll look over and look at you. So that kind of makes it harder to make candid shots. So right now I'm at f4. On this lens, there's not a little distance chart for f5.6, so you're just gonna have to guess that's between f4 and f8. So right now, if I move 15 over between f4 and f8, I can read on the left side I have 2 meters, so right around 6 feet, and on the right I have 15 feet. So right now, shooting f5.6, everything between 6 and 15 feet is going to be in focus. So if I set my camera right here, I know that just walking, I can basically get everything I want in my shot. Because personally, I really like taking pictures in that 5 to like 10 to 15 range is where I take most of my shots. Now, this is also useful for landscapes, because as I set my lens down to f8, I can set f8 at infinity. And if I want something in the foreground to be in focus, so here it's set between 2 and 3 meters. So it looks to be right around 8 or 9 feet. So I know right now everything from 8 or 9 feet to infinity is in focus. We can further step that down, or stop that down to f11. We'll take our infinity, we'll move it up to 11. And then you can see right here on the left side we have our chart. So everything from 6 feet to infinity is going to be in focus. So just using your aperture, your distance scale, and your focusing scale, or just using those 3 things, you can preset your focus, and then the process of taking pictures is extremely quick because I don't need to focus. And if I'm pre-visualizing, which I usually try to do with my frames, I already know the picture I want before I lift the camera up to my eye. So doing this, I'm like, okay, I see a man sitting down, and that'll be in the top. Say I want that, put that in the top left of the frame, and then I have another element, because I want to balance my image. So I have another element in the bottom right. I'll walk up with my camera preset, probably on the man. So say he is 7 feet away. I'll walk until I'm 7 feet away, preset my focus, take the picture. Real quick, I just want to say how I determine distances. So I'm 6'2", which is a little bit taller than average. But these same things will generally work for a lot of people. So for me, when I reach my arm out to touch something, like I just did, I know if it's just like an inch or two past my fingertips, that is going to be, if it's just past my fingertips, it's 3 feet. And as someone that's six feet tall, as an adult, most adults know if they were to fall down where their head would hit on the ground, just because that's something instinctively we know. So I look at the ground to where my head's going to hit, and that's approximately 6 feet. So if I look down at the ground, I'm like, oh, if I were to fall right now, that's where my head would hit. I know that's 6 feet away. So I can walk until I'm that distance from a person or from a thing I want to photograph, and I can look down. And that's 6 feet. And then beyond those two distances, it's just kind of a process of teaching yourself. And I want to show you, so here I have, stop banging my watch and stuff. Here I have a 21 millimeter lens. So this is the Voigtlander 21 millimeter f4 lens. And because it's a wide angle lens on a rangefinder, so rangefinders, you never look through the lens, you always look through a rangefinder window. So if you're using wide angle lens, you have to get an auxiliary finder. This is the Voigtlander 21 and 25 millimeter auxiliary finder. Super great. I'd say it's 90% of the Leica or Zeiss rangefinders, and they're 1/2 to like 1/4 of the price. So here I want to show you the distance scale, because this is a wide angle lens, and on wide angle lenses you have slightly different. So on the other one, see f4 on this. If I'm shooting f4, which is the minimum aperture, and I put infinity to f4, everything between 5 feet and infinity is going to be in focus. And the reason why there's so much more depth of field on this lens is because this is a wide angle lens. So say I stop it down to f8, and then I'll compare it back to my 35 millimeter lens. So I move infinity to f8 here on the side. So right now, everything between infinity and 3 feet is in focus. So wide angle lenses, because now I'll do f8 on my 35 millimeter lens. So here we have f8, move infinity over to f8. Let's do middle of infinity, and everything from, it looks about 8 feet. So 8 feet to infinity versus 3 feet to infinity. So there's just slight differences. If you are maybe a little bit less familiar with photography, wide angle lenses will always have more in focus at any given aperture than a telephoto lens. I can show that with this is a 105 millimeter lens. So you can see how 8 is in green there, and then I don't know if it's gonna pick up very well, but I just moved 8. That little green line right next to the center black arrow, that is green. So here, because this is a telephoto lens, instead of the 21 millimeter lens when it was, 3 feet to infinity, on this it's 60 feet to infinity is going to be in focus. So just the longer the lens, the more, I guess, like the zoom of the lens, the less that's going to be in focus. And real quick, I was talking about how I like rangefinders for their distance scales. Here I have one of probably my favorite SLR lens. This is the Nikon. You can see I have a yellow filter because I like my yellow filter a lot. This is a 35 millimeter 1.4 lens. And on here I still have my distance scale, but because this is an SLR lens, they generally don't have the same, their focus scales are not as well done as rangefinder lenses, because I guess people are more used to using rangefinder lenses for their focus scales. So here, on this one, f4 happens to be green. So you can see here I can still like set my focus using my little tick marks. And then here f8's in pink. So I can still set it, and here anything from infinity. But here you can see my numbers aren't as clearly printed in my depth of field chart. So I just have to guesstimate. So I can see that. I'm like, well, it's more than 2 meters, less than 5 meters. So it's between 6. So you just have to like guesstimate. That's like, okay, well, I guess that's probably 3 meters. So infinity to 10 feet. Whereas for f8, whereas I look here and I know kind of exactly what is it. It's infinity, well, not I guess exactly, but it's infinity to like 8 feet. So it's just a little easier to use because they have better labeled focus throws. I guess that's really just what I wanted the video to be about. How I use distance scales and how they have benefited me in presetting my focus and allowing me to anticipate scenes and then capture those scenes without having to hold my camera to my eye and have the subject that I'm photographing notice me and look at me and missing that candid moment. I hope it was helpful.